Finding random frames in Barry Lyndon Until It's Ugly, shot by the great John Alcott, who also did some other Stanley Kubrick movies. This is one of the best looking movies of all time in my opinion, so I have my work cut out for me. 1, 2, 3. Yep, great looking shot. One thing you'll notice about this movie in particular is that the beauty of it does not necessarily come from the complexity of the lighting. The lighting in this movie is very natural and very simplistic, and we can see that right here. The light is primarily coming from this direction, probably outside of the window. It is a very hard light hitting the back of his body right here, and then maybe being reflected with a bounce board on this side, which creates a key light on his face. The only other tidbit to know in this film with the lighting is that the light coming from this direction is probably being gelled with a 1/2 sepia gel, and that just creates a more orange-brown look to the light. So not ugly, here we go, 1, 2, 3. Yep, great looking shot. The first thing I notice about this shot is the glow it has in the highlights of the image. As you can see, the highlights of the image are kind of blurry. They're kind of spreading themselves over the rest of the image. And typically when you see that in a film today, you assume that they are using something called a glimmer glass filter in front of the lens. But this film being shot in the 1970s used a number 3 low contrast filter. And I think what that is doing is not only blurring the highlights, but also just bringing up the shadows a little bit. So this image doesn't have as much contrast as you might be used to seeing in a film that is made today, but it still looks good nonetheless. So not ugly, 1, 2, 3. Yep, really cool looking shot. As you can see, the key light on his face is primarily coming from these candles right here. And if you know anything about lighting films, you know that lighting with candles, lighting people's faces with candles is pretty much impossible because they produce so little light. However, that leads us to the most interesting, probably the most famous tidbit about the cinematography of this film, and that is that Stanley Kubrick actually petitioned NASA to give him 350mm f.07 Zeiss still camera lenses left over from NASA's moon landing. These were rehoused to fit the Mitchell BNC 35mm film cameras that they used on this film, and in order to do that, they actually had to make it so that the lenses have a fixed f-stop of 0.07. And for those of you who don't know, an f-stop is basically just the aperture. It's the hole in the lens that allows light through it. The smaller the number, the bigger the aperture. And an aperture, an f-stop of 0.07 is basically unheard of in today's camera and lens system. Very gorgeous looking shot. Not ugly. 1, 2, 3. Now this is a pretty flat shot. There's not much depth in the background. There aren't many vanishing points or leading lines drawing our eye to anything in the background, but that's okay because it looks nice anyway. The lighting on his face creates contrast and creates depth that is lacking in the background. As you can see, this side of his face is dark, this side of his face is light, and that tells our eyes that there is a depth to this image. Also, we are getting color contrast from the oranges of his face and the blues in the background. That also separates him from the background more so than if his skin tones were blue. Not ugly. 1, 2, 3. Okay, very nice shot. Again, it looks like we are motivating the light from the candles, and there are a lot of candles in this scene, providing a lot of orange light all over the place. However, one thing they also did in candlelit scenes sometimes is that they would place reflective sheets of metal above the frame on the ceiling, which would just help to reflect some of the light down back onto the actors. Also, there is kind of a bluish tint to the fill light. As you can see, this guy is lit with some blue light, their heads are lit with some bluish light, and if the only lights in the scene were the candles behind them, then I don't think that we would expect to see light on this side of their bodies. So another thing that they did for scenes like this was that they used mini brutes and Lowell lights with umbrellas for the overall ambient fill of the scene. So not ugly, here we go, 1, 2, 3. Love this shot. Another interesting tidbit about this movie is that I don't think they actually used any sets. They didn't use any backlot sets on studio grounds. They instead used actual locations, so this is an actual location somewhere, which is pretty cool. And that's kind of what I mean when I say that the beauty of this film doesn't necessarily come from the lighting, because more thought and effort went into the creation of this actual place than it did in the lighting plots that were used in this scene. Specifically for this scene, I believe they have mini brutes outside of this window shooting through plastic diffusion, and that creates kind of a softer light. The shadows down on the ground are not the hardest, so you know that it is being diffused by something a little bit. I believe in real life there are also other windows like in this direction in the actual room. So this is not the only window in this room. There are other windows in this room that they blacked out, because if they did not black those windows out, there would be a lot more light on this part of the image, and that would create less contrast and a less dramatic, interesting looking shot. Not ugly. 1, 2, 3. Great looking shot again. First of all, we are creating depth by shooting into the corner of the room, creating this vanishing point, and also the repeating pattern of tables, as you can see right here, leading our eyes back and forth. This is also probably another instance where they are using a tungsten light right here in order to provide this edge light and the key light on his face, possibly, again, gelling it with a 1/2 sepia. But in the background, we can see that the light is a lot more blue. The light down here on the floor and on the tables is a lot more blue, and that is light just coming from the sun. And as you know, light that comes from the sun, the light that you see when you step outside, is a lot more blue on camera. You can't really tell when you walk outside because your eyes adjust to it, but it is a little bit more blue. Specifically, it is more close to 5600 Kelvin. And Kelvin is just a way to measure the color temperature of light, whereas the light hitting these two people is more 3200 Kelvin. And one thing they could have done in this scene is gel these windows with that 1/2 sepia gel I talked about earlier to create more of an orange light to match the light hitting them, but it was an intentional choice by Stanley Kubrick to not do that, which I think works nicely because it creates more contrast. If you had a more orange light coming through the window, it would create more color harmony. It would like blend a little bit better, but choosing the blue creates more color contrast, which creates more depth. If you had more color harmony in this instance, it would make the image a little bit more flat. But using all of these things combined, using the difference in color, temperature, the vanishing point shooting directly into the corner, and the repeating patterns that you see here, creates more depth. So not ugly. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, good looking shot. Again, we have a simple lighting setup, shooting a light through the window and then possibly reflecting that light back onto their faces. And lighting like this can typically give you an underexposed image, but one thing they did in order to compensate for this, because they weren't using much light in the shot, is that they pushed the film stock one stop. So this image looks more or less properly exposed, and therefore it is not ugly. Here we go, 1, 2, 3. This goofy guy. Not ugly, 1, 2, 3. Yeah, another great candlelit shot. We are probably using those NASA lenses here and lighting primarily with the candles, which are providing light on their faces. But we are also getting a little bit of moonlight over here. It is probably just a mini brute gelled with a CTB, which is a gel that gives a more blue tint to a light. And blue light in this situation obviously mimics moonlight. So, not ugly, 1, 2, 3. That looks like a painting, dude. Again, I think the beauty of this image is not coming from the lighting. The lighting is flat. It is not doing much, but the rest of the image is what makes it beautiful. The actress, the makeup, the hair, the set design, the color choices, those are all what is making this image beautiful in my opinion. The lighting is easy. Soft light in front of them. The rest of the image is what is hard. And for some reason, I think that people starting off in cinematography and filmmaking, I think they focus too much on the lighting. The lighting can be simple. The rest of the image is what needs to be complicated, and more thought needs to be put into the set design and the color choices and the makeup and the actress and the actors, I think, than the lighting necessarily does. Obviously, the lighting can't be bad. Like, if this had bad lighting, that would make it ugly, but lighting can be passable. Right? Lighting can be passable. The other things need more thought put into them, I think, especially for people just starting out. And I think another thing that makes this shot interesting and beautiful is just the positioning, the blocking of the actors. It looks like a painting, and I think that is intentional. And this is something I'm not really sure how to describe, except for it doesn't necessarily look natural. For all of the naturality of this film, the way they chose natural locations and natural lighting setups, I don't know if this is a supernatural way of posing your characters, but it looks really nice. And it's kind of a glimpse into the past, in a way, into the way that art was done in this time. It looks like a painting that would have been painted in the time period that this film takes place. And so when our minds, which have seen those paintings, see this, we associate this with that time period. So not ugly, 1, 2, 3. Really cool. I don't know what else to say about this shot besides whoever the location scout is for this film did an excellent job, because this is just a great angle of this castle. That's primarily why this shot is cool, is because of that freaking castle right there. Not ugly, 1, 2, 3. Yep, really nice. Again, these windows probably have diffusion on them, and there are probably lights shooting through them, and it looks cool. I don't know what else you want me to say. The chandeliers are cool. The pillars are cool. The desk is cool. The chair is cool. The rug is cool. The floor is cool. This guy's hair is cool. The painting's cool. I mean, it's all about texture. It's all about the details of the scene. One thing that one of my favorite filmmakers, Andrei Tarkovsky, says about cinematography and filmmaking is that you want your scenes to have texture to them. And I think this scene does have that kind of just a texture. It has a personality. It has all kind of just stuff going on. All right, 1, 2, 3. Yep, nice shot of a castle. Nothing to see here. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, not my favorite shot so far, but we have this similar thing going on with the lighting. 1, 2, 3. Great soft light on his face. Great portrait shot. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, that's cool as well. Looks like we're lighting a little bit differently than we have before now. The light is primarily coming from above and shining right down. It almost looks like it's motivated from a skylight or a hole in the ceiling, but I'm sure they didn't really have holes in the ceiling back then. So the lighting might be a little odd for this scene. A little bit different. But doesn't look bad, doesn't look bad. 1, 2, 3. Yep, nice diffusion in the atmosphere. Fire back here, depth. Cool, 1, 2, 3. Yeah, he's on a horse. He has a cool costume. It's very soft, looking up through the trees with the nice bokeh in the background. And I said this in the last video when I did this for Sinners, but one of the main ways, if you are on a budget, you can get a nice looking shot is just by taking your actor out into the woods and shooting up into the trees so that you get all these nice pockets of light and bokeh as the background. It just creates a nice, interesting, contrasty look. Really cool, 1, 2, 3. Yep, nice. We have a very strong foreground presence right here, which is really helping to create the depth in the image, which leads our eyes to this guy, which leads our eyes to this guy, which leads our eyes to these people in the background, which leads our eyes to the castle, which leads our eyes to the sky. And there are just many planes in this image. There are tons of different things on different planes at varying degrees on the Z-axis. Also, the color choices of red in front of the green trees creates, again, color contrast, and that is nice. I'm not sure I'm going to find an ugly frame in this one, guys. 1, 2, 3. Gorgeous shot. That reminds me of a Caravaggio painting or something. The high contrast being primarily lit by candlelight. And then also you have a candle right here that is perfectly placed, creating an outline of her hair against the background. If that candle back there was not there, you would not really see this outline. Her hair would blend into the background. 1, 2, 3. Gorgeous. I don't know what else to say. The paintings here, it's just about the set design for me. The set design is a patterned set design, which is creating just an interesting look. And the blocking of the characters are also doing a great job. 1, 2, 3. But there it is. That's probably the most iconic shot in the film. And again, it looks like a painting. It looks like, I don't know how to describe it. How would I describe this? It just doesn't look, it just looks posy, I guess. It looks like they're all posing in a way, but not posing in a flattering, modern, model-y way. They're posing in a Renaissance, artistic painting kind of way, if that makes any sense. Yeah, but also the color choices are great here too. The blue makes Barry Lyndon stand out. The reds contrast with the greens. The golds match with the gold frames. It's great. 1, 2, 3. Yep, looks good. 1, 2, 3. I mean, it's cool. It's cool. You got a frame within a frame here. So a frame within a frame is basically just when you have the frame of the actual image that you see on screen, and then there is another frame in the image that is framing an object in the image. And that creates a cool looking thing. I don't know what I'm saying anymore. I'm getting tired. 1, 2, 3. Great shot. 1, 2, 3. Great shot. 1, 2, 3. Cool shot. 1, 2, 3. Great shot. 1, 2, 3. Yep, looks good. 1, 2, 3. Looks good. You can really tell the low contrast filter and the blooming of the highlights in this one. That looks really nice. It just gives it a really beautiful look to me. 1, 2, 3. Moonlight. Gorgeous. 1, 2, 3. Yep, that looks nice. 1, 2, 3. Great wide shot. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, that's cool too. Light coming from this direction. He looks weird. 1, 2, 3. Already seen this one kind of. 1, 2, 3. Yep, great depth. 1, 2, 3. Oh, we just saw that. 1, 2, 3. More moonlight. 1, 2, 3. Okay, am I gonna have to go frame by frame in this movie to find an ugly frame? That is a gorgeous shot. Shot at golden hour. Look how the shadows are created by the sun being low in the sky, the orange light, the nice shadow. That's so freaking pretty. 1, 2, 3. Oh man, gorgeous. Again, beauty is coming from the landscape. I mean, this lighting's nice too. The lighting on her face is interesting. I wonder how they're doing that. I wonder if do they have a light off screen this way shooting at her face? It doesn't quite look like that because usually you would see a light on the back of him as well. I wonder if his shirt, not this, but his shirt underneath this coat is white and the light coming from the sun or whatever is bouncing off of his white shirt and providing this nice fill light on her face. That is very possible. If so, genius. This actually is one of my favorite shots of the whole thing so far. Love that. 1, 2, 3. Gorgeous patterns of light on the wall, creating contrast. Look at that. Light, dark, light, dark, light, dark. That's one of the things I always talk about on this channel is creating pockets of light, creating patterns of light from light to dark to light to dark. If this wall was just all this shade of light and it was all flat, it would look more flat and it wouldn't be as interesting. So nice. 1, 2, 3. Great shot, great depth, great color contrast, great background. That looks like a freaking pyramid. 1, 2, 3. We already saw that. 1, 2, 3. Nice. 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 Love it. Shot on a long lens, compressing the space between the background and the foreground. 1, 2, 3. Nice. 1, 2, 3. Nice. I'm gonna stop saying 1, 2, 3 now because it's getting annoying. Again, what do we have? Lighting, simple lighting. The beauty is coming from the location. Okay, not ugly. Not ugly, but a weird frame to land on. Not ugly. Not ugly. It's not ugly. Getting closer though. Not ugly. Not ugly. Not ugly. Motion blur doesn't count. Not ugly. Not ugly. Great close up. You see the catch light in his eyes. Not ugly. 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 Cool shot. He looks like a cowboy in the shot. I already saw it. Not ugly. Not ugly. Not ugly. Not ugly. Not ugly. Great shot. Silhouetted against the sky. Gorgeous. Not ugly. Not ugly. Not ugly. This may be the hardest movie I've had to do yet. I don't know if there's an ugly frame in this. Tell you what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna go frame by frame through this movie until I find an ugly frame, and then I will tell you, because I can't do this forever. Okay, I found it. I found the ugly frame in Barry Lyndon, and here it is. It's a blurry shot of a tree trunk, and it happens in this context. As you can see, the camera is tracking with these soldiers as it passes a tree, and I just happened to find the frame that is only the tree, and it's out of focus, and it's blurry, and it's ugly. It's ugly. What do you want me to say? Yes, I cheated. Yes, I didn't find it randomly. I had to go through a third of the movie to find an ugly frame, but there it is. There is an ugly frame in Barry Lyndon. So honestly, one of the best looking films of all time. Hope you guys learned something from this. I learned a lot from this. Until next time.